Hey guys, this is Alex Silverman, and I'm here for my very first video tutorial, which is on how to replace a sky in Photoshop. So here's a shot that I took in Cold Spring Harbor, Long Island, and I like the shot a lot, except that the sky is lacking, in my opinion. I like some clouds, so we're gonna throw in some clouds. I've seen a dozen ways through other tutorials and whatnot that people use to select the sky. But I'm going to show you the way that I find to be the easiest and the least destructive. And here we go. So first things first, going over to create a new layer, doing Command J or Control J on a PC. I'm going to go up here to the Select tool, and I'm just going to select the entire sky just below the tree line. I'm going to then go up to color range, and the goal here is to make the entire sky white. Anything that's white is going to be selected, anything that's black will be deselected. So I'm going to do that using the color sample dropper, which is in the middle. And from having done this before, I already know that we're going to start off, we're looking at something around over here. After I do this, I realize that I didn't show you the before and after, so I'll do that right after this. But just to finish this first, the goal here is to get everything in the sky white. Because we have this building over here that's white, that causes some issues. So I'm going to use the negative color dropper tool to deselect that to make that black. And again, over here we're using the middle tool, the middle dropper, to make the rest of this white. Now it looks pretty good. Depending on your picture, you're going to have to play around a little bit using any of these. You'll see what happens. There's no real one-way formula for this. You're just going to have to play around. You can still see some white stuff over here. We can fix that later. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK. And you see now that this is all, if I zoom in, some other stray selections here. So I'm going to hit the letter W to quick select the quick selection tool, which is up here. I'm just going to get rid of that by holding down Option. I think would be Alt on a PC to just get rid of these other little pieces here that are accidentally selected. And that should be good. Alright, so now I'm just going to hit the Delete key or backspace, and that's going to cut out. And I'm now going to hit Command D to deselect, or Control D on a PC. And you'll see now that that has deselected, that has deleted the sky. You'll see that better if you deselect this background layer. And now you'll see that the sky is gone. And just to go back to the beginning for just 1 second, this is what we're going to be turning this into. Here's the before, this is the after. So just to give you a frame of reference, show you what we're doing. So now going back and deselecting this background here, I'm going to zoom back in a little bit just to show you that there are some pieces of blue. I'm going to zoom in over here in the trees that were left over. Zoom back over a little bit more. Oh, this is pretty good. But there's still some blue over here. So just to show you what we can do to get rid of that or further refine that, just to select that again. Go back up to color range. You can do this as many times as you need until you get as good a selection as you want. I'm actually going to go down here to the selection preview, and I'm going to do none. And then I'm just going to click somewhere on that blue and change this up a little bit. Let me go back to grayscale. So now you see that everything that's in white is basically one of those greenish blue areas in the sky that we want to get rid of. Now it looks pretty good. I don't want to select this antenna though, so I'm going to do the same thing as I did before with the quick selection tool. And just got rid of that. And now I'm just going to hit delete. Alright. So you'll see here that doing that got rid of some of this over here in the roof. So I'm going to select this again. And then actually, you'll see this again in just a second. So I'm going to go over to this other layer I have here. Now I clearly don't endorse copyright infringement of any sort, but for this educational purpose, I just grabbed this shot from the internet. I have no idea who it belongs to. It's a beautiful picture. If you were watching this and you took the picture, this is for purely educational purposes. So going back here to our image, we want to put that sky in between the background copy and the background. So I'm going to select the background and then hit Command V, or you can go up to paste it to edit paste. Now you see that issue that we had before over here. So to get rid of that, to bring back the roof, I'm going to duplicate the background layer again by hitting Command J or Control J. You're going to just drag that layer to the very top. So now you have everything here, and you're going to hit the Option key, I think Alt on a Mac, I'm sorry, on a PC. We're going to create an inverted mask. Zooming back in, I'm going to zoom in real close. You want to take a white brush, and we'll do it at probably, let's do it around 50 or around 75%, relatively small. Taking a white brush over here, which you can toggle black and white using X, and then just going to paint onto it right here, and you'll see that it comes right back. You know, if you go too far, you can always just hit X again, and that'll bring you back to black to brush this back in. You'll do it at 100. And going back to white, and you'll see here I'm going to use a harder brush. You see that now we've solved that issue. And that really goes for anything. You know, if you wanted to, for whatever reason, get some of the sky out of here, you could do that. You know, whatever you want to do. There's also a couple of ways now that we could add a gradient. But before we do that, I just want to show you, go back to the sky layer over here, and to blend this, because this clearly doesn't look real right now. First of all, we have to move this around a little bit because of this tree over here on the left. To do that, then we're going to you can either hit V, or you can go up to the Move tool at the very top. And then I'm just going to use this to, I'm just going to drag this along so we get out that tree. And at the bottom of this, you see some of that gradient that occurs naturally in the sky, and I'd like to keep as much of that in here as possible. So I'm going to do it about right here. Actually, I don't like this area right here. I have to get some more clouds over there. So I'm going to just zoom out a little bit and drag that down. Now it looks pretty good. So then I'm going to hit enter to apply that. And now we're going to have to do something about blending it, because clearly this doesn't look real. So you can play around with the opacity depending on the type of image you're working with. This doesn't look horrible, but it definitely does not look real. So I'm going to keep the opacity at 100, and I'm going to play around with these blending modes. And I'm going to select the overlay blending mode, which makes it look really good. There's still work that could be done, but this definitely makes it look very good. And now there's a couple ways that we could add that gradient that I was talking about. You could either add a mask directly to the sky layer, and then you could come over to your gradient tool, which is over here. You might have it under the paint bucket tool. If you right click on it, it'll bring you up this menu. You can select gradient. And then you would use a typical linear gradient, which is the last one on the left, and using black to foreground, or black to transparent, which is this middle option up here. You would start around the tree line. I'm going to start it around this part of the pier and drag it to about middle of the sky. And that adds what looks like a very natural gradient. If you didn't want to do that for whatever reason, this honestly doesn't matter. There's multiple ways of doing everything. To go back, you could also go up to this inverted mask and using foreground and using transparent to black or whatever. Hitting X will toggle it to Y, to the white. You can do the exact same thing, and it'll look exactly the same. It's really 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I'm just gonna do it on the sky for whatever reason. Oop, gotta toggle back to black. That looks pretty good. So now to adjust the colors a little bit, I'd like to bring out some of the purple or pinkish colors in the clouds. So to do that first, I'm going to go over to Hue Saturation. If you don't have a Hue Saturation palette over here, you can either go up to Window and then go to Adjustments, or you can just do it from this down here, selecting this little icon and then going up to Hue Saturation. So I want to make sure that this only applies to the bottom layer, to the sky layer. Actually, I'm going to move this down over here. And I'm going to hit this clipping mask icon over here, and this will make sure that the adjustment that we're about to apply only goes to the layer immediately below it. So I want to bump up the saturation a little bit on the purpley pink area here, which shockingly purpley pink isn't an option, but reds is probably the closest. And I'm going to take this dropper tool here and just sort of take a sampling around here. I'll click it around 3 times, maybe 4, maybe 5, or whatever, just to make sure we get a good sample. And now I'm just going to bump this up, not too much, you see that's what happens, but just bumping it up a little does a pretty good job. And then I also want to make the sky at a little bit more of a gradient by making the top of the sky a little bit darker. So I'm going to go back up here to a curves adjustment layer, do the same thing with the clipping mask, and I'm just going to lower this a little bit. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the gradient again by going to the gradient tool by hitting G. And I'm going to do it a little bit actually from the right side. As you can see, the sun is setting from the right this way. So it's lighter over here naturally. So I'm actually going to use this radial or circular gradient, radial gradient. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And I'm just going to sort of start out here and just do it like that. And start a little down here. You see that added the gradient a little bit from the right, which is the direction of the light source. Maybe lower that a little bit. Now it looks better. And I'm also going to decrease the saturation in the blue a tiny bit. Actually, I'm sorry. Before I do that, I want to make the sky a little bit more purple, a little bit more of magenta, I guess, by lowering the magenta or raising the magentas a little bit, increasing the blues a little bit. just to sort of match the color in the pier, and just to create more of a purple sky during the sunset. Like how that looks. Do the same thing with the clipping mask. And now, as I said, I want to lower the saturation in the blue a little bit by going back up to a hue saturation and selecting only my blues. Take a sampling of the blue over here. Just lowering this a tiny bit. That looks a little better. So that's really it for now. The last thing I'm going to do, just to tie the whole thing together, to add one common element to the entire shot, is to add a bit of a warming filter. It's going to be common to the whole shot. A little high at 25%. I lowered it to about 15% here. And then I'm also going to lower the opacity a bit. Before I do that, actually, I'm going to make sure that this is at the very top, because I want this to apply to everything. And then I'm just going to lower the opacity down to 0 and then put it back up a little bit to around 47%. Maybe a little lower. About 40%. And that just adds one common element to the whole thing that'll tie it in to add a bit of blending. This could be a little bit lighter. To do that, I'm actually just going to go to this layer over here. And I'm just going to use my brush at a very low opacity, about 10%, and I'm going to lower the flow to about 70%. I'm just using a large brush, which you can adjust with the bracket tool, with the bracket keys on your keyboard, or you can hit the right click on the image. I'm going to lower this hardness to 0. And I'm just going to paint out some of this with a white brush down here, as you'll see down here. Just lower it just a little bit. And I think that looks good. So that's pretty much it. If you want to see the entire thing, you start at the top layer and go back down to the bottom and when while you're holding the Shift key, and then hit Command G to group them. And here's your after and your before. Before, after. You can lower the opacity on the entire group a little bit if you wanted to. But I think that looks pretty good. And that is really it. If you guys liked the video, if you found it helpful, feel free to leave a comment. You can email me any questions, comments, concerns through my website, which is alexsilvermanphotos.com. And feel free to check me out on Instagram at absilverman. All right, thank you very much.